Well, hello everybody. This is Dwight Cyphers of Cyphers Gunsmithing. It's April the 25th of 2023. Nice Tuesday morning here in Indiana. So I'm kind of I guess I'm starting to get the reputation of being the Savage 10mm2 gunsmith. And there's plenty of other guys out there that know how to work on these and stuff. Anyways, a lot of people send me their Savage 10mm2s to be repaired or to be customized, and I really enjoy doing it. And I've got a long history with the Savage 10mm2. I'm a gunsmith, a full-time gunsmith. I own a gun shop here in Indiana, up near Dana. You can find my information at www.cyphersgunsmithing.com. How to contact me there. My number is 812-251-6465, and you can get a hold of me sometime, and if you need some help with your Savage. Anyways, so let me put this hat back so you can see my face a little bit. Not that you really maybe want to. Anyway, so I go back with this Savage 10mm2 a lot of years. Shortly after it came out, the 10mm2, I got intrigued with it because here in Indiana we were only allowed to use shotgun and pistols and muzzleloaders. And I had hunted with a handgun since 1986, just because I wasn't too crazy about using shotguns or black powder muzzleloaders. But when I heard about the smokeless muzzleloader, I became intrigued with it. Got involved with some message boards. Got involved with a guy by the name of Randy Wakeman, who is a very well-known gun writer. He has a great YouTube channel, Randy Wakeman Outdoors. He's got great website. He's the owner of chuckhawks.com. You want to find out things about just guns in general, but especially a Savage 10mm2. He's a great source of information. He's got a lot of YouTube videos, and he's got a lot of information on his websites. Anyways, so let's talk about this Savage 10mm2 because, like I said, I do a lot of customization and repairs on these guns. Not that too many of them really need repair. A lot of times it's just minor stuff, stuck breech plugs or whatever because of lack of maintenance, lack of care, and just not knowing how to deal with it. So just recently I finished a gun for a customer named Brian down in North Carolina. Hi, Brian. And he said, hey, can you give me some tips and hints on the do's and don'ts, because he wasn't real familiar with this gun. He bought the gun used, sent it to me, and we it was a little bit rough. It was plain Jane, and we fixed it up. So, anyways, I'll tell you, this is a Savage 10mm2 that I've recently completed for another customer down in Florida, and he's going to come up, pick it up here pretty soon. Now, this is not a left-handed bolt. My camera inverts things, okay? This is a right-handed gun. So, anyways, this is my right hand, although on camera it looks like the left. So just kind of talk about some of the things that we do to them. We'll put a semi-custom wood stock on them. A lot of times I'll change the ramrod, put something on there and make it fit the gun. Glass bed it and free float it. Polish the barrel. Do any kinds of deal with any maintenance issues with the breech plug. Maybe change the breech plug. Put new vent liners in it. New triggers. Just some basic stuff that you do to any rifle. And mounts. Do the scope mounting. Big thing that I do is test a gun for safety and inspect it, because a lot of people have concerns about, is my gun safe to shoot? I always do that first, and anyways, and then we set up some custom load for your particular gun. I like to talk to my customers a lot and find out what their expectations, what their needs are, because not everybody's the same. A guy hunting open fields in the Midwest may say his gun up much different than a guy hunting, say, in the mountains of North Carolina, and his further shot's going to be 100 yards. It's going to depends on the size of the guy and what his recoil, his recoil tolerance is. What kind of performance he's looking to get. Is a kid going to be using this? Is it a smaller person? Is it a big person? So I take all that into consideration before I customize a load for that particular customer and their gun. But it's something that we do. Now, you may be wondering, what's this whole thing about smokeless? Well, I'll let you see the other side of this gun. What about smokeless? This is a nice looking rifle. This is not the fanciest one we've ever done, but I think it turned out nicely. It looks good, clean lines. Nice rifle to go hunting with. Anyways, smokeless. What do we mean when we say smokeless? Well, most of your what you call black powder guns are designed to shoot black powder or a black powder substitute, okay? Like Pyrex or 777. Now, I'm going to get real technical here for a minute. Some of those black powder substitutes, a lot of them actually are not true. They're not truly black powder. They're smokeless powder, and the ingredient to make them generate smoke is actually added, okay? But they fall under a different classification as under DOT rule regulations for shipping powder and stuff than the actual black powder. Black powder is classified as one type of explosive. Black powder substitutes are classified in the same category as smokeless gunpowders. Yeah, it's kind of confusing, isn't it? But basically, here's what I'm telling you. Black powder, Pyrex, 777, white hots, that sort of stuff is not what the 10ml2 was designed to shoot. It was designed to shoot smokeless gunpowder, which is basically like what you would find a pistol powder. We're talking Accurate Arms 5744 is probably the most popular powder. It's my favorite in the gun. Vita Very N120, Vita Very N110. There's several powders that you can use safely in the Savage 10ml2. It is not safe to use anything other than black powder or a black powder substitute in any gun that is not designed specifically to shoot smokeless gunpowder. And as far as I know, the Savage 10ml2 is the only muzzleloader ever made by a major firearms manufacturer designed to fire smokeless gunpowder. Okay? So, now, there are some smaller companies that make smokeless gunpowder muzzleloaders. They're high performance. They're very good quality. And there's several of those companies out there, and you can research that yourself. They have really high price tags, but they have very high performance levels. Okay, and so you can do a search on that yourself. A lot of those guns are designed to shoot without a sabot. What's a sabot? Well, people call it sabot. All right. This is a sabot. It's the French word for shoot. This is the bullet. Really, and a lot of muzzleloaders shoot these. Okay, you can shoot this out of a Thompson Center Triumph or whatever, but you're going to shoot it with a black powder or a black powder substitute like Pyrex or 777. You're not going to shoot this out of your Thompson Center, your Hawk, and your CVA with anything but black powder or a black powder substitute. You're not going to use smokeless gunpowder. Okay, it's not safe, and nobody recommends it, and it voids your warranty, and you could blow your gun up and hurt yourself. Now, the Savage is designed to shoot it. They run a little bit, you're talking your pressure levels are higher with smokeless, okay? So, anyways, also, the Savage uses a 209 priming system. It's pretty simple. I'll see if we can show you this. Anyways, right here on the bolt face, I don't know if you can see this. Maybe I've got a flashlight here. Kind of handy. Yeah, I might. Anyway, it's just a little, there's just a little C cup right here. It's kind of bright. There's a little C cup right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Now, the primer just sits right in there, okay? And then when you close your bolt, it carries it up and it seats it inside the breech plug, and it makes it kind of halfway decent still. But you don't get a bunch of leakage back. You don't get a bunch of blowback out of this gun. Henry Ball, who was a fabulous, fantastic gunsmith down in North Carolina, he designed the breech plug system for the original smokeless Savage 10ml. And then due to some, the ATF changed their decision on that gun on the original 10ml. Said first they said it was classified as a muzzleloader, non-firearm. Then they came back and said no, it's a firearm. So they had to change the ignition system a little bit. So Henry actually designed two different ignition systems, and did a great job. And he's no longer with us, but he was a great innovator. My hat off to Henry. So anyways, so it just takes a 209 primer. That brings up 209 primers. There's 209 primers and there's 209 muzzleloader primers. I used to think they're the same. They're not the same. Okay, from my understanding, the 209 ml primers, the ones that are marked, they're the same size, but they actually have less energy. Well, that may be fine for your black powder substitute gun. It's not what you want to shoot in a Savage 10 ml 2. Okay, you want a full power 209 primer. Now, I don't think it's real critical, okay, which one you use. I've used Cheddite, I've used Federal 209, Federal 209As, I've used Winchester 209s, CCI 209s. I can't tell you that one's really my favorite over another. Just whatever's handy. I don't think it's that big a deal. But that brings us to your breech plug. Your breech plug it looks kind of like a little spark plug that fits up inside the barrel. There's two kinds for the Savage. One takes what they call, it's a spanner wrench that fits up in there, fits in a couple of notches. It's a long tool that Savage provided. We call it the fish whacker because that's about what it looked like. And later on, they got their act together a little bit better, and they made a breech plug that took just a socket. And I can't remember what size that is right offhand. It was a 3/8 or whatever. But it was a fairly common deep well socket. You put it on a ratchet, stick in there. Much better. Whenever I change breech plugs, that's what I always try to put in the customer's gun. It's not the same breech plug in the 10 ml 2 as the original 10 ml. 10 ml uses modules. It's like looks like kind of a sawed-off 45 ACP case. The primer goes in that, then that seats inside the gun. And so anyways, the 10 mls are classified as firearms. The 10 ml 2 is not. It's classified as a muzzleloader. There wasn't that many 10 mls made. I think the originals are less than 5,000. Maybe it was 2,000, but it wasn't a lot. From my understanding, I've had a few come through here that we've got back running for customers. But you can't replace the breech plug in the ignition system with the one off a 10 ml 2 to a regular 10 ml. I don't really know what. A lot of times when those get messed up, you're done. As far as I know. Now, I'm not saying that somebody with a slick machinist couldn't come up with something. There's always something that can be done. It's just, is it cost effective? Anyways, talking about the 10 ml 2 breech plug, it's a good design. It's a good breech plug, and they'll last you forever if you take care of them. But sometimes things happen, and people shoot these guns they don't know what they have, and so they shoot them with black powder substitutes, Pirate X 777. And especially with Pirate X is really, really corrosive, and then they get messed up or they get stuck, and it's difficult to get them out. And sometimes you damage them getting them out, or the vent liners get stuck and seized in them, so they have to be replaced. Anyways, typically on a breech plug, you want to service that thing at least every 100 shots at a minimum. I like to say every 50. To pull the breech plug out, you remove the vent liner, which is just a hardened cap screw with a tiny, tiny little orifice in it that the ignition fire goes through. You take a 5/32 drill bit, and you actually drill the carbon out, because the carbon builds up in there, and you would say, "No, that's hard. That's steel." No, it's not. That drill bit will go all the way through. So you open that up, and if you do it every 50 shots, it's usually not too bad. And the vent liners, I like to change that every 100 shot. Believe it or not, as your vent liner erodes, that orifice will erode and open up. It will have a tremendous effect on your accuracy. So I always just tell a guy, hey, change it. Change your vent liner with every box of primers, or once a year, whichever comes first. So generally, most guys aren't shooting 100 shots a year. People, they complain they've had problems with accuracy with their 10 ml 2, and that's a lot of the new guys do have problems with it. And it's all because of this little guy right here. Okay, the sabot. All right, let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, let's talk about heat. The smokeless gunpowder. I'm trying to get this bullet out of the sabot. I want to show you something. Smokeless gunpowder burns really, really hot inside your barrel. Did you know that? Some powders reach an internal temperature as high as 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So, when your barrel on that first shot is at ambient temp, and this little piece of plastic sitting in there, well, it's fine. Okay. Now, let's say you've shot 3 or 4 shots over the course of 5 or 10 minutes, which, see, that's the deal with smokeless guns. You don't get the buildup as you do with some of the other black powder substitutes, and people tend to shoot them quicker. So then the heat builds up in the barrel. Well, now this plastic sabot, which this particular one is one of my favorites, is made by MMP Sabots down in Arkansas. Connie and Dale, I'm trying to think of the last name. Anyways, I always forget stuff when I'm making a video, but Connie's running that show down there, and she's a sweet, sweet lady. Order your sabots from her. I really like them. And there's others out there, but I get these from her. This is a short MMP black, and this is a 50 caliber on the outside, and it's made to take a .45 tube bullet. This is a 250 grain Hornady XTP .45 tube bullet. Anyways, so what happens is when this sabot is at ambient temp, 70, 80 degrees or even cooler, it's stiff. Okay, but stick it down in a barrel that you've shot 4 or 5 shots out of, and the temperature is now, and I have no way of measuring what the internal temperature of the barrel, but it can be hundreds of degrees. This thing gets soft. Okay. Well, what this does is this engages the rifling of the barrel, and it imparts, and as it goes through the barrel and it spins, it imparts that spin to the bullet, and that bullet spinning, and this whole idea between a rifle and rifling, that's what stabilizes it. Well, if it's hot and the sabot's gone soft, now it's going to spin free, okay? And now your accuracy is all over the place. So the number one accuracy tip I can give you, regardless of your load, regardless of your bullet, with a Savage 10mm2 smokeless muzzleloader, is keep your barrel cool. And they heat up a lot faster than what you think they do. I mean, literally in the summertime or spring or fall, when I'm working on customer guns and I have ability to shoot right outside the door of my shop, I literally shoot the gun, bring it back inside or leave it out there, and I shoot one shot every half an hour. Because I don't have time to be doing it all over and wasting ammunition. I can do other things. Okay, you're like, well, man, every half hour. Well, I'm just paranoid. I don't want my barrel heat up at all. I keep every shot at ambient temp. Because when you're hunting with a muzzleloader, that's what you're going to be doing anyways. You're going to get that one shot at ambient temp. Really, and if you have my preference, I have a good friend, Rick Clow, who used to go by Tar 12 on Doug's muzzleloader message board. I was rifleman over there. Back in the day when we used to talk a lot about these guns, we were figuring a lot of stuff out. He said to me one day, he didn't live too far from me. He's a very accomplished hunter. He's killed a lot of deer with 10mm2s, probably about more than anybody I know, because he used to do depredation tag hunting with his gun here in Indiana anyway. He said, man, I don't even like to even fool with my gun until it's below 40 degrees. Yeah, I'm the same way too. But bottom line is just this. That doesn't mean you can shoot this gun. And there's plenty of customers that use these out west, Arizona, Florida, and stuff like that. You just have to make sure that you shoot it from a cool barrel. And that's all I can tell you. You got to figure out what that is. The guys make barrel coolers. They do all kinds of things if they really want to do a lot of range work in it. But yeah, most guys are hunting with these. Misfires and safety. Can you get a misfire with a Savage 10mm2? Sure you can. You can get a misfire with anything. Any muzzleloader, especially. So what causes misfires? Well, moisture. Moisture getting in your powder column. Another thing is, the one thing that I learned, when it gets really, really cold, you're dealing with the sabot again, and it seems like you load it back at the truck, the gun's warm, and you go out and you sit on your stand here in Indiana, and it's 20 degrees, and you've been sitting there for 2 hours. It seems like this thing shrinks up, and smokeless gunpowder requires back pressure to burn. And so, and some powders are more sensitive to that than others. So that's one of the reasons that I used to be a big fan of Vitavari N120, but I found out that when it got really cold, I would get misfires occasionally because that powder is a little bit harder to ignite, and it takes some good back pressure, and this would pull up off the powder column. So you've got to reseat it. Okay, now I like to use a A5744 because it's a double-based nitroglycerin powder. It ignites really well and really easily. So, like I said, there's other powders, but that's one of my favorite powders to use. Now, can you get more performance with the N120 if the load that I was known for? Randy Waitman sent me this load. We were able to do some pretty good shooting with it back in the day when 300 yards with a muzzleloader was kind of unheard of. And he wrote an article on me, put it on his website. I think it's called A Rifleman, Barnes and Savage or something like that. Anyways, so yeah, we got good performance with that load, and it got real popular. So much, we were shooting a .458 300 grain Barnes original bullet with an orange MMP Sabo from Connie down at MMP, and we were shooting some N120 gunpowder. And yeah, it worked out pretty good. You could zero the gun about 3.5 inches high at 100, be dead on at 2, 18 inches low at 300, which was pretty well on a 3x9 scope. Your duplex point was about your aiming mark for 300, depending on what scope you had. I was shooting a Zeiss, so it was a little bit wider, and it worked out good. But you could figure it out. Nowadays, there's some nice scopes out there that have ballistic reticles. That's one thing that I do for customers when they send me the gun. You know, I'll develop the load, but I also develop to whatever reticle system they're using so they can get more out of it. So, especially with these newer reticles with the ballistic drop, you get multiple hash marks on there. I can really make that gun work, and you don't really need as much velocity because you've got the set stadia lines. Anyways, so that brings us again to load choice and powder choice. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that some of the powders that are harder to ignite, you may get a misfire in certain situations. The big deal is don't ever just put another primer in and shoot that. You must reseat that. That primer has way more energy than what you think. And sometimes that bullet is sitting way off the powder column now. And typically, even if you reseat just put a new primer in, you're not going to get ignition, but you might. And if you do, you can blow out your barrel. It's basically like an air hammer, or what they call a water hammer. If you work in a power plant or someplace, you know, you got to be careful how you introduce water and pressure into a piping system, because if there's an air bubble in there, it can damage the pipe. And the same thing with any gun. So, yeah, it's real important to reseat that bullet if you get misfire. And if you have any question at all, hey, it's time to stop, remove your breech plug, push the whole mess out, and start over. Guys talk about, well, I left my muzzleloader loaded for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks, and it still went off fine. Sure it will. I one time had a guy bring in a black powder gun that had been loaded in his house for 16 years. We put one cap on it, boom, it went off. I wouldn't count on it. It's not a good idea. Me personally, when I muzzle, or even with the Savage Smokeless gun, at the end of the day, I shoot it out, and I start with a fresh load the next day. Now it's just me. I love things to be reliable. You do the same thing to protect your Savage 10mm2, just like any muzzleloader. If it's damp or wet outside, you can put a balloon or a piece of tape, electrical tape, over the muzzle. Keep and protect your gun from moisture. Always on your ramrod, you always want to make sure that you put a witness mark. That's one of the things I make sure I do when I set this out. When I send the gun back to the customer, there's a witness mark, and if that gun is loaded, that's where she's going to stop. If it's not loaded, it's going to go in. So witness marks and muzzleloaders, that's muzzleloading 101. It doesn't matter if you use a smokeless gun or not. Witness marks will save your gun, may save your eyesight, may save a hand, or whatever. The other thing is shooting tips. These guns are fairly heavy, and they're not super fast. We're talking muzzle velocities, in reference to rifles, high power rifles. Compared to other muzzleloaders, they're quicker. They're higher velocity. Your standard ones now. Again, there's always I mean, like the new 700 Ultra ML with 4 pellets, you get some pretty high velocity. You can hit 2,300 or better, maybe even more. But you still got to keep in mind, you've got a lot of ejecta. What's ejecta? That's the total weight of your bullet, your sabot, and your powder charge. Everything that is ejected from the gun. And the ignition is slower, and the internal velocity buildup is a little bit slower. You have more what's called time under the curve than like, say, your 30-06 or 308. What does that mean? That means the gun starts to move, and it does with these other guns too, but it's more pronounced. The effect is more pronounced. The gun starts to move before the bullets left the barrel. So what does that mean? That means that your shooting form is more critical, okay? Some calibers are easier to shoot well than others. A bullet that's a light and gets out of that gun quick, like a 223, easier to shoot compared to something like a 45-70. With the 10mm2, I tell guys, get into it pretty heavy on the bench. You know, good bench rest technique, you typically don't. You let the gun sit on the rest, you hold it, you know, firmly, make sure you hit your trigger, you know, with the pad of the first finger, straight pull back, firm contact of your hand and of your shooting cheek. And a lot of times you want this hand, they'll just use to support the back of the sandbag or whatever. 10mm2 or heavy shot, like shotgun slugs, whatever. No, your better form is to actually get in the gun, hold it firmly, and you got to be consistent. It takes a little practice, and the gun will put you a little bit. But so, what are some reasonable performance expectations? Well, 200 yards, just flat out. I'll just tell you. This is a 200-yard gun all day long. Can you get 300 yards out of it? Yeah, fairly easily, yes, okay? But it's not for everybody. But for just a standard guy who set the gun up, it's a 200-yard gun easily all day long. What more do you want? Your ballistics will be about the same as a hot pistol caliber rifle or 45-70. That's really what the gun mimics, is a 45-70 so much, and depending on what load. Between a 44 mag and a 45-70, that's your performance level. Pistol caliber rifle, straight wall cartridge rifle is reasonable. Now, can you do more and better? Yeah, you can, and you can chase that rabbit as far as you want. I mean, there are smokeless muzzleloaders out there now that are shooting sub-bullets without sabots, shooting really heavy, slower rifle powders, and that are shooting out to 8, 9, 1,000 yards and doing some incredible things out there. But that's not what this is. The Savage 10mm2 is meant to be easy, safe, reliable. It's a great system, reasonable performance, and it's not that difficult to do as long as you don't overthink it and you just follow a few simple rules. Again, the biggest one is safety, and then after that, making sure your barrel stays cool. I was going to mention this. This is a little powder vial. This is how I typically carry my powder to the field. Say this will hold a charge of 40 A5744 or N120, N110, or whichever powder I'm using. I measure these. Smokeless powder is weighed, okay, whereas black powder is measured volumetrically, even though it's still expressed in grains. So what do you need if you have a Savage 10mm2? Well, you're going to need some way to weigh your powder, like a digital powder scale, some way to throw it. Lee makes an inexpensive powder thrower, something to keep it in, a funnel, whatever. And so I hope this helps you. I hope it hasn't been too difficult to watch. But I hope if you're a Savage 10mm shooter, and if you need help with your gun, you need it repaired, or you would like it customized, get a hold of me. My name is Dwight Cyphers. I own Cyphers Gunsmithing down in Dana, Indiana. I'm the old Marine rifle shooter. I used to shoot for rifle teams in the Marine Corps with the crooked glasses. I can be a little grumpy or whatever, but you know what? Most guys like I've not had anybody that said they didn't like my work. So get a hold of me if I can help you fix or repair or customize your Savage 10mm2. I hope you liked the video. Again, you can contact me by looking up my information. You can find me on Facebook, Cyphers Gunsmithing, or you can find my website, www.cyphersgunsmithing.com. www.cyphersgunsmithing.com. Thanks for watching. God bless you. Keep looking up. Jesus is coming soon. Thank you.